welcome to LaunchLeft podcast. I'm Rain Phoenix, your host. Today's very special guest is Tegan and Sara. Don't forget, rate and subscribe. Follow us on all socials at LaunchLeft and leave a review. Tell your friends. Thanks for being part of the community. Have a great day.
Thanks for having us.
It's weird because I don't think of us as having actually met, but there was this one time that Clea, this was a long time ago. This was probably like 12 years ago. She dragged me. I'm like a nerd. Like, I'm not like a cool person who hangs out cool places. I'm not, I don't know. I call myself a normie. Like, I'm a very normal person. And one time when I was visiting LA, she made me go to the chateau, and you and your brother and like a bunch of other fabulous looking people were all hanging out there. And Clea just was like, hey guys. And like, just like was talking to you guys. And I was just like, I felt like I looked like someone in the cleaning staff or something. Like, I just was like a stalker who Clea couldn't get rid of. Anyways, I did sort of informally meet you one time before, but it was really, I mean, I made myself as small as a pixel when I did. So
I like that expression, as small as a pixel. I haven't heard that. It's very modern.
You know what? I'm just a modern girl. But anyway,
well, nice to meet you again then, Sara.
I know. Next time.
If you'd met me, you'd know, because I have never small like a pixel. And
are you guys very different like that?
Yeah. Sara and I joke that in the womb, I got all the confidence, and I just feel like that's like probably one of our biggest differences. Is I just feel this probably undeserving amount at times of self-confidence. And Sarah's always the one that's like shuffling around, calling herself part of the cleaning crew. And I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? Stop that.
That's interesting, because I feel like I have both those personality types in me. And, I think I came into the world really shy, painfully shy. And then I learned that, like, if you want to do things and build things and get things done, you have to come out of your shell. So, so I can do both, or I am both, I should say.
I think that's great. Well, maybe that comes with time too. Like, I think.
Yeah, I am ancient. So
no,
it's true though. I've got at least a decade or two on you. So
no. Yeah. Well, I think sometimes, it's a funny thing. Like, I think a lot of artists, all of us are, it's weird how we can come alive like on stage, and we can carry, a whole show, and we can direct tens of thousands of people's energy towards us. But then you go into like a cost, shopping, like, to go shopping, and like someone will come over to me and be like, can I help you with any sizes? And I'm like, no, don't notice me. Like, it's so funny, like the things that bring out. Like, the other day I had to go to the dermatologist. I'd never been to a dermatologist because it takes like 5,000 years to see one in Canada. And I was down in LA with my partner, and she took me to her dermatologist, and she's like a celebrity dermatologist. I was so nervous. It was like I can't even think of a time I've been so nervous. And when we were sitting in the room, Sophia, my partner, turned to me at one point. She was like, why are you behaving like this? I'm like, what am I doing? And she was like, you're just acting so strange. And I'm like, I'm so nervous. And it's funny, like, but then I can, like, I don't know, walk into like the backstage at Coachella, and I'm like, Beyonce, get out of the way, like, I don't know, like certain things just like don't intimidate me.
It's never, Tegan, you would never.
No, I wouldn't. I was.
It was kind of like behaving like a pixel or something. That was an expression, right? Beyonce, get out of the way. It was an expression.
It's an expression.
You would never do that. We know.
No, I love Beyonce too much. I did see it once.
I think there's something to be said for a kind of, stage. Just, it's like a cloak of performance that comes over, and when you step on a stage, I think that's something that even people who haven't yet to perform or don't plan on it, when they step on a large stage, I think it would be noticeable. Kind of like when you get married, you think, oh, it's just a piece of paper, and I'm going to get married, and we'll still be the same, right? But there's something that happens that changes the relationship imperceptibly, but then very perceptive. Like, suddenly you're like, why am I behaving different? And so I don't know if it's just this sort of like, well, the world believes I'm married, or the world believes I'm a performer, so now I'm stepping into this new version of myself.
I think that's spot on. That's spot on.
There's also, I think that what I've found through talking about this a lot in therapy, is when I feel like, this is going to sound crazy, when I'm being paid to do something, I'm like, well, I'm obviously good at this. Like if someone's paying me to be somewhere, I can like really lean into the part of me that is like, yes, I'm good at this. And when I'm just doing normal life, I'm like, I'm garbage. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's a really, like, it's really, and I don't mean to sound like that's very extreme version. I don't, mostly I go through my life feeling like probably something very in between that. But I think when, like, to go back to that sort of original story I was telling, like there was a period of my life where anytime I was in a situation where maybe it wasn't clear what I do for a living or what I'm successful at, I would be like, well, I have nothing to offer these people. I have nothing, like I'm not substantial in any way. And it took me a long time to figure out that I could be interesting on my own, that I didn't always have to be part of Tegan and Sara, the band, but also just Tegan and Sara, twin sisters who like show up places and everyone goes, oh, interesting. I really didn't believe that I was that interesting until probably like I was in my 30s, you know?
Yeah, it's wild to think about that for all of us, and also just culturally, you know, how we all grow up with this idea of success, and like as long as you're being paid for, you're successful, then you're something. Yeah. Otherwise, you're nothing. And so it's no wonder there's so much despondency and mental health issues and things. It's like, how can everyone be a success? How can everyone knock it out of the park and get their name in lights, or, you know?
Yeah.
And so instead, you know, I really hope this little hub we've created is kind of this wish and aspiration that those who want to make art just make art and feel seen for that and feel heard for that without it having to make a big splash necessarily, but that's part of also why it's fun to have people who have made a splash and who have done it their own way and arrived in a sense to pay it forward and talk about other artists that they really champion that might not have that opportunity yet. So it's a kind of practice. This whole podcast is a way to try to unravel a little bit of that, because I do think that, you know, I don't think people who are successful feel that as much, although I've heard that people who are successful just want to be more successful. So it actually never ends. It's like a cycle of like, we're not big enough. We didn't get that. Let's go for this, you know? So yeah. I don't know if it ever ends unless we end the obsession with sort of like fame and, like arriving. This sense of like arrive, as if anyone ever fully arrives in their life, you know.
The best, like I have this thing that just popped into my head when you were saying that, like in 2010, I think it was, we were opening for Cyndi Lauper on her True Colors tour. Yeah, it was such a delight. She was incredible. And one night we did this HRC event, and Regina Spektor was also on the leg of dates that we were doing. And I remember we went to this HRC event, and Cyndi and Regina and Sara and I were sitting together, and Regina was asking Cyndi Lauper all these questions about like, we were all meaning Sara and I and Regina, you know, we were kind of complaining about like how hard it is in the industry and it's so tough. And, you know, when are you satisfied? And like, you know, Regina was kind of giving this really eloquent, wonderful sort of soliloquy about like, like art is hard. So Cyndi hears the three of us kind of, you know, all lamenting how tough it can be, you know, how hard art is. And, you know, she kind of gave us all a lecture about how it's always hard, and that the harder it is, the more, you know, you're doing something challenging, you're trying something new. And that even at the height of her success, it's like she came off, you know, this moment with She's So Unusual, like all these Grammys, this big moment. And she's like, then it's hard, because you're like, well, then what do I do? And how do I sustain that? Or how do I do something creatively satisfying that's different? And I remember really thinking a lot about that after that tour and through the next part of our career, where, you know, it became about assigning value to like the kind of success that I was interested in. And that for me, the value is in challenging myself. And so it's like success looks really different from year to year. Like sometimes success is like, how do we get a bigger, better time slot on a festival? But then the next year, it's like, how do we take a year off and write a book? Like, how do we do that? How do we, you know, like to me, it's always changing and challenging myself to do something different. And that's allowed me to feel like slightly less upset about not achieving certain kinds of success. And I think like going back to what you were saying about shining a light on new artists and helping other people. Like, I think what Cindy was doing for us, like Sara and I've tried to pay forward to so many artists as well, like sharing information, sharing experiences, reminding artists that sometimes you'll think, oh, I want to have my song come out and I want it to be huge. I want it to get playlisted on all the big Spotify lists. And then it happens. And then you feel this emptiness and it didn't satisfy you. And that's actually really normal. And that most people feel that way. And that you're going to have to start to look inwards, not to get real woo woo here, but like you have to start to look inwards and see, like, what is it that you really want? You know, like a lot of these external check marks that we're putting on the list of things that we're supposed to achieve as people, not just as artists or, you know, performers or whatever, just as human beings, like getting a big screen TV or, you know, getting a butt that you see on TikTok all the time. Everybody wants a nice butt or whatever. It's like,
wow,
that's true.
That was
that's what's like
an interesting spectrum from a big screen TV to a butt. Yeah,
I love that. I loved it.
I don't know. Like my thing is just like, it's always changing. You know, what you want to achieve. And ultimately it's never the things you thought. Like, it's not the obvious stuff that fills the inside, you know?
Yeah. That's good of you. Thank you for sharing that with our audience. And because I think, you know, for those who feel like they've never had that, they assume that if you do have that, everything's great.
Yeah.
So and I think it's always about really opportunity that we're interested in. Like, how do artists maintain receiving a form of opportunity to do what they love and to feel seen when they do it? And that's, you know, a tough call because it is a competitive sport. And it does. And, you know, there's a lot out there that, you know, isn't great. And there are some people who shouldn't quit their day jobs. But, but that said, you know, each and every one of us is a creative, even those whose day jobs are accounting. I feel like people with numbers, by living, we create. By existing, that is creation, right? So, and so I'm always like, just cultivate being creative. Let's start there and finding pockets of time to find yourself through the creative and art. I see Sara thinking,
I was like, you know, I think there's like this, not to put it into like such like a binary, but like, you know, there's the part of most of us that is like artistic and creative. And then there's just like a job, you know, like I love making music. I love writing books. I love doing all the creative things that Tegan and I do, but there's just like a huge chunk of that is just a job now. And, you know, I thought it was interesting. Like the thing that peaked for me was like, this idea that if you are a creative person, that if you're not making a living or having a job with, you know, you doing that thing, that somehow you're not as successful. But the truth is that some of my most creative friends, some of my most inspired friends do not want to earn a living from their art because they understand that like the sanctity of what they do would be forever changed. There would be a sort of surrender or a compromise that just fundamentally makes them feel uncomfortable. And I have that too, but I'm also like a business minded person who's really excited about business and the industry and all of these things. And so luckily I'm able to sort of like hold both of those things at the same time. I can be like a super creative, artistic person, but also I'm like really delighted and creatively stimulated by the business part of making what we make into something that earns us money. And not everybody is equipped with that. Like our art director for the last like 20 years, she's an amazing artist, but she is an unbelievable chef, like an unbelievable chef. And when we were younger people and she would be like, the music industry fucking sucks. Like it's such a sellout business. And I was like, oh my God, we've turned your beautiful art into like landfill garbage, you know, or whatever. And I'd be like, you should be a chef. Like you should be a chef. And she'd be like, then it would be a job. Like I cook and I create food and environments for people to eat and talk and share because it's like another form of art for me. And I don't want it to be a job. And I like really admire that because I would be like, I'd be a chef and an artist, you know, yeah. I really.
Yeah, but okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to push back on that because over my shoulder here, this is art that Sara draws. And Sara draws these incredible in like intricate, wild portraits with pen that like every single person, like I have a couple of them when people come to my house, they're always like, oh my God, who is this artist? And I'm like, Sara. And if I were Sara, if I could do that, first of all, I wouldn't even be in this band. I would be selling my art. I would be like on my own. It would be Tegan and lights. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand it. And Sarah's just like, oh, no, never mind. So I don't know. I call bullshit on this whole chef thing.
Well, you all are incredibly prolific. Speaking of art, multi-platform artists, I would call you. I know that you're known for music and you've written songs and played guitar since you were younger. First question is, who picked up the guitar first? Because I think it was like, I read somewhere that you were 15 when you started. Was there one of you in particular who was like, started with some chords and the other was like, wait, what's that?
We did kind of find the guitar at the same time. We were musical. We had played piano as kids.
Oh, okay.
We listened to, we were shitty at it. Like no one was like, they're really good. There's something there. Like we were just doing it because my mom was like, dear God, get out of the house for an hour. But I think when we found the guitar, it linked up with the music we were listening to at 15. We were listening to like Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins and Hole and all of that. And so we were like, oh, cool. We want to play guitar. And we really had like an innate ability to construct songs. And we started singing together and writing together and performing. And right away, people really liked us. And it felt authentic. Like, I would sometimes look back and think like, were people just putting it on? But when we found like the demo tapes of our recordings in high school and saw the videotapes of our performances in the 90s, even now at 41, I feel like I objectively can say like there was something there. Like I see what people saw in us at that age. And I'm not sure how much we've improved, to be honest with you. I'm like, yep, all that stuff looks like the good and the bad kind of looks the same, but yeah,
I think what we were doing then, I think when we found the guitar and what made us love it was how joyful it made us feel.
Yeah.
It made music. And that's what people were picking up on. It wasn't that we were perfect. They were just, it's so clear when you watch the videos and hear the songs, how much joy we were experiencing. It was so unbridled. And you can see the reaction in people is that like, it's not like, oh, wow, they're the next Beatles. People were just like, this feels good and it feels real, and I think that, this isn't my way of trying to get out of practicing or rehearsing or trying to improve. I just think that we've been very careful and protective of that joy over the years and made sure that we still feel it. When I pick up the guitar, it's not a job.
Yeah, I love that. I was just thinking how that's, again, a kind of practice to do that, because there's something that happens when you do something to replace the joy and everyone notices it and they are like, yes, you, and then the next version of you is tainted almost by that. Oh, yes, and you're like, oh no, what do I do now? Like they like me. And so it's a skillfulness in your own mind to maintain. Remember why we started this? It was for joy. It's joy creation and not like, okay, let's one up and do this. And that's really cool that you think that way, or that you've maintained that, because I think it's noticeable when an artist accepts the accolades and then makes a project, you kind of can tell.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Too self-involved, like reflective or something, or they know what people want.
Well, I feel that those
authentic.
Artists, but that's like, it feels like to me what you're describing is an artist who knows how to replicate what they did in the past. I'm not sure that we're capable of that. I feel like every time we're even remotely successful at something, even if I tried to replicate what I did, I'm not that kind of artist. So I'm like, like every time we have a moment, because our career now has been, over 20 years, there's only been a few moments where we've been like really successful by like outside standards. And when I like think about those moments, like even if I wanted to replicate that moment, I have no idea how we would even do that. We always follow up everything with just whatever happens next. Cause like, I don't really feel like capable of sitting down and going, this is the kind of record that I'm going to make, or this is the kind of song that I'm going to write. I just sit down and like, I truly believe I'm just a conduit. I'm just receiving what's coming next. Sometimes it's better than other shit. You know what I mean? And I don't know, like I embrace that. I think like, anyway, so I feel like what you're talking about, like that's a different kind of artist, an artist who says, oh, people really like this and this has been really successful for me, so I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that. That's like a whole skill set I certainly don't have.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have a new single out and you have a new record out. But
we have like, I think, an enthusiasm and excitement about this album just because it sort of came out of many years of sort of sitting still, which is not something we'd ever done in our adult lives. The pandemic certainly sidelined our touring, but also our creative kind of schedule, I guess you could say. Like, we'd been pretty regularly writing, recording, and touring albums for 20 years. And so this album feels like, sort of a rebirth or a reemergence, like, from a really sort of quiet period and a really restful period. And so I feel like there's a lot of like good positive energy. It feels like a live album. It feels like we want to go out and like, blow people's eardrums, and that feels really exciting. And sort of taking it back to basics, just like, can we make songs that don't need a lot of bells and whistles and magic? Can we be compelling with just, strong melodies and great lyrics? And anyways, we're really excited about it. And it's
too.
Yeah, it's fun to be making, records after all this time. I mean, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's a given anymore. Some people just don't get to do that, and we do. And that feels like we feel really like a lot of gratitude about it.
It's so very exciting. And then I assume you'll be hitting the road.
Yes.
In support of it.
Yeah, we're going to go out in October and November. So that's going to be really exciting. I think in November, it'll be officially 3 years since we've played a show. So that's like really exciting. Yeah.
Wow. And so you've answered my question about where music found you, kind of. We talked about guitar and sort of your influences at the time and why you moved from piano. One thing I always like to ask, too, is what is your form of activism, or how do you give back in a wider sense to the world? And I know you both have an amazing organization, so I'd love for you to share a little bit about that, too.
Yeah, so in 2015, 2016, in that time period, we sort of formed with our management, like this sort of thinking on how to give back and have more reach when it comes to giving. We hit a certain point in our career where we were getting hit up constantly, like, oh, do you want to donate a guitar or help raise money for this organization? And we've always been really like active politically. We've always been really, really social justice minded, always allowing people to table at our shows. But that was sort of the time period where we were like, how do we focus this? And so we decided to start a foundation that raises money and awareness and sort of builds community for women and girls in the LGBTQ community, with a real focus on trans women and women of color, because those organizations out there raise far less money than the organizations that center gay men. And so, like most things on earth, it's just really hard to get people to care about women, especially as you start to get into that intersection of trans women and women of color. So our focus with the Tegan and Sara Foundation is to, raise money and funds for already established organizations, or help those organizations develop programs that center women and girls in the LGBTQ community. It's been really hard work, but really, really gratifying work as well. We just celebrated 5 years. We're getting close to having raised $2 million. We're starting to get corporate sponsors that are coming in. We just had a massive donation from Vans, the shoe company, which is so great because we love Vans, but they just helped fund our entire summer camp program this year. So we send LGBTQ kids to LGBTQ summer camps. There's about 26, I believe.
Amazing. I love that.
So it's been amazing. And honestly, it's, we really firmly believe in redistributing our wealth and our privilege. We understand that being born in the country where we were, with the things that we had, with the support and the family we did. And, as cis women, even as queer women, we still have an easier time, and we need to give back. And I think that we acknowledge that there's so much more we can be doing. And we're just trying to do that through our work at the foundation, and really encourage people to go check it out. We, have lots of really cool programs and organizations we give to. And it's just been so gratifying and awesome.
Fantastic. Well, this is a fun thing to do every time for the show, which is that your launched artist, also known as your cousin, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Jen, is that right? Is that the right? Jen Clement is in the room. Is that cool?
Hi, Jen.
Hi. I was just hanging out with Jen last night. We all live in Vancouver. And not only is she a talented musician and artist, but she also reads a manual like nobody's business. She helped me install a car seat into my partner's car because I'm about to become a parent next week. And if she hadn't been there, my mom and I would probably still be standing outside of the house in tears and probably would have burned our car to the ground. So I'd just like to shout out, I'd like to launch Jen as an amazing musician, but also very, very good at reading a manual, very patient under pressure.
Thank you. I think I almost appreciate that more than musicianship.
Well, that's a great skill set, because I think that's been the downfall of me learning Pro Tools better, is I refuse to read like manuals, almost anything, to be totally honest. I'm like, I just want to feel what's supposed to happen. And I've been able to teach myself that way, but
there's a positive to doing it that way too.
I know, but manuals, it's like a dream to meet someone who will do that work. It's so good on you.
It's Jen, man. It's cousin
Jen. Thank you.
Let's talk about your music, Jen. You want to share a little bit about, you've got a record out as well, by the time we view this episode anyway.
Yeah. It came out on the 24th of June. My project is called Big Rig. It's kind of I am in a band called the Courtneys, and this is like my solo project where I play guitar. I play drums and sing in my other band. So this is like, I'm up front. I just learned guitar like not that long ago. So this is like a real big deal for me that this all came together as it did.
All right.
And I want to just also be like the cheerleader here to say Jen's other band, the Courtneys, is fantastic. And this is a band that very well established, has made great albums, has toured a lot. I think it's not such a small deal to like come out on your own. I know when you've been like part of a band like Jen has, it's like so scary. I can't believe she plays guitar better than us already. And every song is so good. And also there's an entrepreneurial sort of like get it done attitude about you that I am like, you prove that it is genetic in our family. I mean, it is just like, we are just like, it's like we make music and then we're immediately like, I've got t-shirts, I've got hats, I made a video. We're very like, it's just like, I love that. I'm so proud. I feel like the genetics run strong, and I love that.
Thanks. Yeah, that's definitely, it's weird. It's weird doing that stuff. Like, I'm very motivated to do that stuff, but it's weird doing it like where I'm the sole person making the decisions, because like in the Courtneys, I feel like I always call it like a democracy of dictators. Like we're always kind of like trying to get, everyone on board with one idea, and it takes a lot of like back and forth. And then I was like so excited to have like complete control over like the aesthetic and everything in this project. But then I find myself like, I just question everything. Like I don't have those people to like bounce it off of. And it's just really weird to like have to just trust myself. And
yeah, no, it's courageous. I did that too. And it took me, I was almost 50, but the first time I put out a real solo record. So,
wow.
So you're way ahead. And I put it under my name, which I was never going to, I was that scared of it. So, it took a while, but it was a really meaningful thing that had to be under my name. So I kind of had to do that. It was about having the courage to do it, awesome. But yeah, so did you all grow up together as a fan? Like, so your cousins played together when you were kids? Yeah, I love that.
It's interesting that you bring up that we grew up together. I like to take credit for Jen's passion for music, because although we were very alternative and we were technically bad babysitters because we were teenagers and we were total dirtbags, but I think we instilled a very early, our whole family's like this. Our grandparents loved music, my parents really loved music. So I think we just passed that on to Jen. We were just like obsessed with music. I think Jen had great taste in music really young because she had all these influences around her, but then she turned into like such a badass teenager with such great taste of her own. And it's really, for us, it's been really fun. I know like nepotism and all the rest of it, but we've toured with the Courtneys, Jen's other project. And I think Big Rig is really fantastic. And I do think Jen's just an exceptional storyteller, and she does it so well through music and melody. And and we should take credit for that. And you should be, I don't know, are your liner notes done for the new album? Maybe you should be putting a thank you in there.
Oh my God, I love it. Comedy.
I mean, I don't disagree. Like when I was I think I was 7, I bought my first CD, which was a Smashing Pumpkins album. And that is absolutely 100% because of Tegan and Sara. Like there's no question that they just like, I was like dressed like a little, like literally in like 1st or 2nd grade, I was wearing like flannels and like
you were cool. You were cool.
Like jeans with holes in them. And like no one in my Catholic school like understood what I was about. And I still love that music like today. And that is bands like grunge bands and what it definitely influenced the Courtneys. Big Rig, maybe not as much, but like, yeah.
Jen, didn't you and Talia, so Talia is our youngest cousin, didn't you and Talia, when Tegan and I started our band, you guys took our socks and like things that we'd left at grandma's, and then you faked our signatures, and then they tried to go out on the street and hawk them, like sell our belongings on the street as little kids. Like
they were like 10 maybe, I don't even know if we're that old, and we took a pair of socks to the like main intersection near our grandparents' house, and we were just standing on the side of the street like trying to like sell the socks to cars driving by. And then Talia's mom, my aunt, came and like put an end to that. She was not impressed. Like we actually got in quite a bit of trouble. I don't think it was like
what a spin on a lemonade. What a spin on a lemonade stand.
Right?
Really interesting. Definitely left of center. We champion that for sure.
Hey everybody, we're Tegan and Sara, and we want to launch our cousin Jen's new project, Big Rig, by playing you this fantastic first single called Crying in a Corn Maze.
And again, I just want to thank you guys for such an enriching conversation. You made my day brighter.
I drank the tea, didn't think I'd choke. It came to me, what a funny joke. Oh, not again, wish it wasn't true. But she said everything will turn out fine if you want it to. Yeah, everything will turn out fine if you want it. Can't hold your head even if I could, doesn't mean I want to. Can't hold your head even if I could, doesn't mean I want to. I felt the sting left across my face. I'm standing here crying in a maze. I'll take the path when I could cut through. But she said everything will turn out fine if you want it to. Yeah, everything will turn out fine if you want it. Can't hold your head even if I could, doesn't mean I want to. Can't hold your head even if I could, doesn't mean And you can't always win when you try for so long. And you can't win right if the feeling is gone. Can't hold your head even if I could, doesn't mean I want to. Can't hold your head even if I could, doesn't mean I want to. Can't hold your head even if I could, doesn't mean I want to. Can't hold your head even if I could, doesn't mean I.
LaunchLeft aims to create an intentional space that highlights and empowers all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice, but a necessity. LaunchLeft begins with music, but its ultimate aim is to launch left-of-center artists in all creative fields.